It was Samhain, what some men call Halloween, and the sound of the surf on the eastern shore told me I had reached my destination. The road ahead curved steeply upward, leading to the ancient cemetery atop the windswept hill, its crypts and sepulchres outlined like black corpse teeth against the darkening sky. It was Samhain, what some men call Halloween, and I shivered at the thought of what lay before me. All through the long drive from Boston, my mind had returned again and again to the task at hand, the way your tongue will return to the cavity left by a rotted tooth. And as I paused in my long climb, the moon, risen bloated and angry, burst through the clouds to light the landscape with a ghastly yellow corpse light that drained all color from the nefandous and noisome surroundings. It was then that the first of the torches appeared over the far ridge, their destination the same as my own. Once more I struggled upward. I was the last of my kind. No one else would return this eve to what my ancestors had called the Revelation. It was a ceremony as old as time, as ancient as the festival that had taken the sanity and then the life of my nephew, Richard Carter. He had been pulled, half drowned and nearly dead, from the frozen waters of the bay the day after Christmas, 2 years gone. When he had awoken, he had told a nigh incoherent tale of a gathering he had attended Christmas night. The doctors and nurses had tried to calm him, even going so far as to bring him a copy of the dread Necronomicon. In the pages of the book, he had found a passage that had confirmed his worst fears as to what had befallen him on that devil-haunted night. Instead of soothing him, it had sent him on the path to his incarceration in the mental hospital, and eventual death. I had visited him there shortly before he died, and he had told me what had befallen him, things he had dared not speak of to his doctors. What they would not, could not believe, I did. And on the day of his funeral, I vowed vengeance upon those who had brought about his destruction. The festival occurred only once every 100 years, but it was not the only ceremony held in that accursed town. The books told of another gathering, held once each decade, known only as the Revelation. Through study in occult channels, I learned when it was to be held, this night. When I topped the rise, the lights of the city below appeared through the gathering gloom. The sea pounded against the rotting piling of the wharves, the dark eternal sea that concealed its many secrets from the eyes of man. Crowded around the mouth of the cemetery, the torches of the acolytes fluttered and smoked. I was the last to arrive. Now the ceremony could begin. At the gate, I was greeted by the leader of the group, a tall man dressed in hooded robe and wearing a hideous carven mask. With a curiously flabby hand, he beckoned me to follow him into the cemetery, through the ancient graveyard, past the tombs and crypts of the denizens of this accursed town. We made our way to a patch of unconsecrated ground. It was the potter's field, where the lost, the criminal, and those who had dedicated their lives to the dark arts were interred. One of the acolytes had brought a spade with him, which he threw at my feet. The leader indicated that it was my duty to dig, pointing to a patch of ground that seemed less weed-choked than the surrounding area. Picking up the shovel, I furiously attacked the half-frozen sod. It was only a few minutes before my blade, with a dull thud, struck the half-rotted wood of a cheap casket. I watched in silence as my fellow acolytes crowded around the newly disinterred grave. From the burial place, something was pulled out, something that mewled horribly and writhed as if in great pain. A mask, gloves, and robe were produced, and it was quickly covered. The huddled acolyte stepped back, revealing a new member who stood motionless. The leader came up to me and handed me a torch. He motioned to me that the ceremony was over and that I was to leave. But in my foolhardiness, I pushed past him and approached the new acolyte. He stood silently in front of me. Before I could be stopped, I stepped forward and ripped the mask from his face. Madness rides the night wind. Regeneration born of a verminous hunger. Unholy survivors who ought never to see the light of day. I staggered back, the bile rising in my throat. Without thinking, I took my torch and set fire to the rags that covered its hideous carcass. It went up in flames, a holy fire that cleansed the earth of a hideous abomination. There are things that walk and things things that crawl, and a merciful God should see that one does not beget the other. In the confusion, I attacked the others, setting them afire with my torch. They tried to run, but I was too fast for them, and when I was done, a dozen smoldering corpses were all that remained. The next morning, I awoke in my car. I tried to tell myself that it was all a nightmare, but at night, when the dreams come, I know that what I saw was the truth. It's hard for me to sleep now. Sometimes I feel as if my sanity is beginning to slip away. My only hope is that in other parts of the world, there are others who also know and make sure that their wizards are burned to a very fine ash, that nothing is left for the worms to gnaw. If only I could forget what I saw that night, what I saw when I tore the mask from its demon-haunted head. That pulpy, pinkish, pulsating mass, that verminous countenance where there should have been a face.